All right, let's get right into it. You've heard it a million times, right? Is this whole AI boom just the dot-com bubble all over again? Well, today we're going to challenge that idea and show you why looking at AI through that old lens, well, it could be a massive strategic mistake. So let's dive in.
I mean, it's the question that's on everyone's mind, from investors to CEOs. You see these sky-high valuations, this frantic rush to pour money into anything with AI in the name, the nonstop hype. And yeah, it feels a lot like 1999 all over again. So are we just watching another speculative bubble that's doomed to crash and burn?
So, the short answer? Absolutely not. In fact, it's pretty much the worst way to think about what's happening right now. And look, it's not because bubbles can't form. They can. It's because the fundamental DNA, the very essence of this tech revolution, is just worlds apart from the internet era. And let's be clear, the stakes for getting this wrong are, well, they're huge. If you're using the dot-com crash as your mental model, you're going to end up investing in the wrong things, you'll miss the real opportunities, and you'll completely misjudge what's happening on the world stage. So the bottom line is, we need a better way to think about this, a new framework. Okay, so first things first, let's really dig into why that comparison just doesn't work. And to do that, we've got to jump in the time machine and rewind the clock back to the very specific kind of unique set of circumstances that gave birth to the internet in the first place.
Yeah, you really can't get a handle on today without understanding yesterday. See, the commercial internet didn't just pop out of nowhere. It was born from this perfect storm of global conditions, conditions that, frankly, are impossible to replicate today.
Okay, so what were those conditions? Well, it all starts here. The internet boom happened during what experts call the unipolar moment. Think about it. The Cold War was over, and the US was basically the only superpower left standing. That stability was absolutely critical. It meant someone was guaranteeing the safety of the physical stuff, like the incredibly fragile undersea cables that made a global network even possible. So this wasn't just a tech project, it was a geopolitical one, born from this one-of-a-kind alignment of global forces. So you had this perfect formula, right? First, you had unchallenged American leadership keeping the world stable. Second, you had super cheap money just flooding the system because interest rates were so low. And third, you had the magic of software, a technology you could copy and scale to millions of users for basically nothing. The companies that won, your Googles and your Facebooks, they were masters of aggregation. They were like the ultimate middlemen. They didn't create the content, they just controlled how you found it. Own nothing, control everything. That was the name of the game.
So when it all came crashing down, what was the root cause? It was fundamentally a crisis of oversupply. I mean, companies laid down millions of miles of fiber optic cable for a demand that just wasn't there yet. You had startups launching with zero customers, zero revenue, just a cool domain name. It was all supply, 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 with nowhere near enough real, actual demand. That is the key thing to remember. All right, now let's slam the fast forward button to today. Because the AI story, it's not another software story. Not at all. This is a story about physics. It's about raw materials, energy, and atoms. This is a physical revolution. And wow, is the difference stark. The internet was born in a cooperative, globalized world. Today, we're in an era of intense geopolitical competition, mainly between the US and China. AI isn't viewed as just some cool commercial tool to be shared with everyone. No way. It's seen as a strategic national asset, something you have to control. And that one shift, from cooperation to competition, it changes absolutely everything. And this competition is creating two totally different playbooks. On one side, you have the US and its allies, who are all about building networks and controlling the critical choke points, like the most advanced computer chips. On the other side, you have China, which is going all in on vertical integration. Their goal is total self-sufficiency. And neither one of those strategies looks anything like the open global internet we all grew up with. And this is where that bits to atoms idea really hits you. Software is weightless. It just lives in the cloud. But AI? It's built on this heavy physical foundation. Think of it like a pyramid. And every single layer of that pyramid, from the massive power plants at the bottom all the way up to the AI models at the top, is tied to real-world physical limits. You just can't right-click and duplicate a billion-dollar data center. So just think about what that really means. To power these things, you need the energy equivalent of a whole city. You need these specialized multi-billion-dollar data centers. You need to navigate a super complex, politically charged global supply chain just to get the chips. And even the software part. Training a top-tier model can cost hundreds of millions, maybe even over $1 billion for one single training run. This is so far from a couple of founders in a garage. So, what happens when you have a technology that has these massive, real-world physical limits? You get the exact opposite of the dot-com bubble. You get a complete flip, a critical inversion of the entire market. And this right here says it all. The dot-com era, that was supply way bigger than demand, a huge glut of infrastructure chasing after a dream. The AI era, it's the complete inverse. Demand is massively outstripping supply. We have explosive, real, measurable demand from actual users crashing right into some very real physical bottlenecks. The entire dynamic has been flipped on its head. And this demand isn't just some made-up number on a spreadsheet. It's real, and it's absolutely insane. I mean, think about it. Over 800 million weekly active users on ChatGPT. And it got there in months, not years. That's a scale that took the original internet giants like Facebook and Google the better part of a decade to reach. People are flocking to this stuff because it delivers real, tangible value right now. And we're not just talking about eyeballs or vanity metrics here. We're talking about real cash. OpenAI is on track to pull in over $10 billion in annual revenue. Just let that sink in for a second. People, and more importantly, big companies, are paying serious money for these tools because they're genuinely useful. This is not Pets.com burning through VC cash with no plan. This is a real revenue-generating machine. And it's not just us regular folks playing around with it. The demand from the business world is just overwhelming. Get this, 92% of Fortune 500 companies are already actively using AI. For the biggest companies on the planet, this is not a drill. It's not some fun little side project anymore. It is a core strategic imperative. This demand is deep, it's real, and it is not going anywhere. So, let's recap. The demand is real, the supply is tight, the global politics are totally different. What does that all mean? It means we are playing a completely different game now, a game with new rules for money and new rules for adoption. Just look at the economic environment. The dot-com boom was fueled by cheap money. Interest rates were practically zero. It was easy to get cash. But today's AI boom, it's happening when money is expensive in a high interest rate world. That forces a totally different kind of discipline. Investors aren't just throwing money at wild dreams anymore. They need to see a path to real returns, and they need to see it from day one. And because the checks are so huge, it's completely changed who's funding this thing. Your typical venture capital firm, they're just too small to play at this level. The real players now are giant corporations like Microsoft pouring in billions for strategic edge. And even bigger, entire countries, through their sovereign wealth funds, are investing tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars as a matter of national security. This isn't just venture capitalism anymore. This is industrial policy on a global scale. Which brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. You have to stop using the internet as your mental model for AI. Just throw it out. The conditions are different, the technology is different, the global politics are different, the money is different, everything is different. So if that's the wrong comparison, what's the right one? Well, you have to think bigger, way bigger. Don't think .com. Think about the electrification of industry. Think about the railroad era. These were massive, capital-intensive projects that were deeply tied to national power and took decades to build out. But they completely remade the world. That's the scale we're talking about. At the end of the day, this isn't just another tech bubble. It's a fundamental shift in how our physical world is going to be built and powered for the next century. And it's all being driven by hard physics and intense global competition. The paradigm has already shifted. So the real question is, has your thinking shifted with it?